So today's podcast is going to be a special one because there's going to be an inside joke that you, the listeners, are in on that me and Matt are not. Because you see, I have a CD at home called Cartoon Classics and Wacky Sounds. It's actually
What is that?
it's a 3 disc collection of cartoon theme songs, and the second one is 75 wacky sound effects that guess what? You've already heard, and we haven't heard because I'm going to edit these in later. So throughout the podcast, you're going to be hearing cartoon sound effects that I will add in later. When am I going to add it in? I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Maybe right here. Or here. Or here.
Or here. But I didn't hear
Yes.
anything, Brian.
Yeah. I guess it only works
Well,
for me.
fine. We'll start the stupid episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, now sponsored by Acme Products. If you need to kill a roadrunner, Acme Products is the products for you. I'm Matt,
I'm Brian.
and we are talking about some classic animated TV shows. Now, you hear classic, and you might be like, oh, dude, classic, like Rugrats? No, we already did that episode. We're talking about not your daddy's shows that he grew up on, your granddaddy's shows. I ain't talking about anything that is like less than 40 years old, okay? We're going back in time here. Classic animated TV.
Yeah. Two things. First, I think we're proving why, way back when we had talked about, oh, what are some podcast ideas we can do? We have that conversation every now and then. And we talked about, what about animated? And I'm the one who said, animation is too broad of a topic. We have to break it up. And I'm so glad we did because we did a whole episode about Nickelodeon cartoons, did a whole episode about the adult cartoons, and now we're doing a whole episode about classic cartoons. It deserves its own episode.
Oh,
and
yeah.
number two, please
I got a
don't
lot
say
of
daddy in any context.
I do what I want. I'm a grown man. I'm a daddy.
See, your kids are young enough, at least most of them, the younger ones, where that's an acceptable phrase. It just cringes to me. Anyone over like 7 or 8 saying daddy.
So what sound effect are you going to put in the podcast for every time I say daddy?
I'm not going to because I'm not going to give you a reason.
Too bad. You've already done it. We have started this off on like 3 wrong feet, and this has a long roads upwards to get. But hey, we're talking about some awesome TV shows, so we're gonna go up that hill. So when we talk about like classic animated shows, I think the one of the pinnacles that we can easily talk about is Looney Tunes. Like Looney
Yep.
Tunes is like they're like the Muppets in terms of a zeitgeist where it's like everyone knows about Looney Tunes, even if they've never seen a single Looney Tune, whatever, they
Mhm.
know about them because they're that popular.
Exactly. It transcends so much. And like I said, that is something like my dad grew up on Looney Tunes. It could go way, I'm not sure when Looney Tunes started. Was it like the 30s? I think it was a long time ago. And
Actually, I got so Looney Tunes started, yeah, back in like the 40s. But what had happened was shortly after there's the first talkie, which is a movie with dialogue or sound, was called The Jazz Singer. And so this guy named Leon Schlesinger, he was like the businessman associated with. He's one of the producers. I don't know how much he had to do with that movie and the creative decisions behind it, but he sounds like one of those guys is like he knows what's gonna make money, and so he can like help and throw weight behind it. So Warner Brothers does Jazz Singer, and then Leon Schlesinger like sees what like Walt Disney's doing in the late 20s and 30s, and is like, we
mhm.
need to do our own sort of thing. And so he starts this so Warner Brothers animated business, and their big head thing was Looney Tunes, and he starts that with in like mid 1940s and gets that ready to go. So he was the guy. Leon Schlesinger was the business head behind Looney Tunes.
Okay. Yep. And Mel Blanc is the voice behind Looney Tunes.
Yep. And then of course there's a lot of those other guys that like that you've heard their names before, like Chuck Jones and Tex Avery. Like these are the animators and the creative heads behind Looney
Yeah.
Tunes. So, they Leon grabs these guys, and some of them he
Mhm.
even steals. Like I think Ub Iwerks, who worked a lot with Disney early on, went from working with Disney because like Ub Iwerks and Walt Disney worked really early on. Then their first endeavor went bankrupt, and Disney moved out to LA. And then like the stuff that they're working on right before they went bankrupt were like these Alice in Wonderland cartoons that were like kind of mixture of real life footage and cartoons, and they didn't get a chance to save them with putting that out in time. So they had these ready to go, and someone from New York saw it and was like, "Actually, I want to book you to make more of these." So then they get back together, and Ub Iwerks and him they work together. They get Oswald the Rabbit, who then gets stolen by Universe. I mean, not stolen. They had the rights to it, but they were terrible about that. And so they're like, well, let's develop Mickey Mouse and our own production company, and Disney
Mhm.
Brothers that turned into Walt Disney Company. So Iwerks was with him for about 10 years and then came over even to Warner Brothers after that. So he got like Disney's right hand man about
Yeah.
10 years later after they developed Mickey.
You either know a lot or you did way more preparation than I did for this podcast.
Both. I love like early animation. I got a lot more to talk about with some other ones, but yeah, I
Yeah.
love like the birth of animation studios and
Yeah.
that time frame.
Well, I'm glad you stopped at Looney Tunes. We can stop off on these because it's weird. It's like there's so many different characters. It's almost like 15 different shows into one because you have
Oh yeah.
the Roadrunner cartoons. You got Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. You got all these ones. My girlfriend's favorite was Foghorn Leghorn. She said, "I said, yeah, when we talking about Looney Tunes, oh yeah, you also need to talk about Foghorn Leghorn." So he's one of the Looney Tunes,
I say you have to talk about a foghorn leghorn who is
which is
now
an interesting.
making movies, Glass Onion and Knives Out. Foghorn Leghorn is in those, so that's not true. That's making fun of for anyone who doesn't know. I'm kidding. That's Daniel Craig, but he talks just like Foghorn Leghorn. Come on,
Yes, I'm sure everyone thought, "Oh, I need to rewatch that. I kind of must have missed that cameo."
like what is he doing in Knives Out? I don't understand.
Yeah. So Matt, what is your personal favorite kind of avenue of Looney Tunes?
I kind of love Marvin the Martian. He was
Yeah.
always like the go-to. Like I watched him whenever it was on. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like so you're going past channels and you hit Looney Tunes, and if you see Marvin the Martian, you're like, oh, I got to see Marvin the Martian. And he was kind of, I don't know, like his cartoons were a little bit more rare than some of the other ones. Of
Yeah.
course, I do love Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. They're like
Yep.
second
That's my
favorite.
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Marvin the
Marvin, you had
Martian.
you had less of Marvin than you had of Roadrunner and Coyote.
Yeah. I think Rotor and Coyote is like probably one of their frontmen.
Oh
People
yeah,
always think of Bugs Bunny, but I think of Roadrunners. I mean, Marvin the Martian's pretty good, but Roadrunner and the Coyote, just how much he like overthinks it, and I mean, so many times it's like he has an opportunity to get him, but he doesn't see it because he's too busy with his contraptions. And of course, you never really want him to catch it. You
yeah,
never really want him to catch the Roadrunner.
exactly. It's fun to see how is he going to get foiled because he's going to get foiled. What's going to happen? I didn't have him as a
Mm-hmm.
teacher. My wife did, but there's a teacher in town, a science
Wile E.
teacher.
Coyote?
Yeah, he's Wile E. Coyote. No, but he's a science teacher, and like he retired about 5 years ago, but he like worked for 30 years or something like that. And I don't know how long he was doing this, but I'm sure he's been doing it forever. But he would show Wile E. Coyote cartoons in his physics class, and then have them write papers or responses as to what rules of physics did this cartoon break.
Yeah. Gravity is obviously the main one.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, constantly. Law of gravity, or like he'd have them like I think because I was there for one of them. Like I was like doing a paralegal, not paralegal, para whatever, as a substitute for one class, and so I was sitting in the back with a student, and I think actually they were having him like in the middle of the thing, like someone would raise their hand when they would see something that violate physics, and then they'd get extra credit or something like that.
It'd be easier just to keep your hand in the air.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. But it's like funny then he'd like go over stuff like, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. That's a great way to learn that.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I think obviously outside of those, you can't not mention Bugs Bunny, and even Bugs Bunny is such a wide range. But I liked him getting the best of Elmer Fudd.
Yeah, absolutely. Like hit the
Mhm.
rabbit season, duck season, that gag
That's
is
the classic. Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. And of course the whole thing where he gets shot in the face and he just grabs the bill and brings it around the front.
This
Pretty sure that would.
means war.
Yeah.
I never really liked Daffy Duck, but that's fine. It was like
Not
you've got
not
so
on his
many.
own.
Yeah.
When he's a foil for Bugs Bunny, it's okay. But on his own, I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just like I never really liked Tweety Bird. Um here's a red flag. I shouldn't say this because this is gonna sound so mean. But here's a red flag that I've noticed with women that I wouldn't want to date if they have a Tweety bumper sticker or a Tinkerbell bumper sticker. If they have an unnatural like love for either of those, 9 times out of 10, that's a red flag. Stay away. That's what I've learned. I don't
Well,
understand why.
how often do you see Tweety Bird bumper stickers?
I've seen them, and I like. I guess maybe bumper stickers is bad, like because this was back in high school, so maybe it'd be
Mm,
like on like
okay,
stickers on their journals or something like that.
okay, okay. I was gonna say, oh, good thing you mentioned high school because I was thinking, Matt, shouldn't your red flag be, is this person my wife?
That's only one of them. I have other red flags. That's an easy red flag to dismiss. I'm just kidding. She doesn't listen to this, but I'm just kidding. I love my wife. She's great.
I'll tell her to listen to this point. Yeah, Matt's
Yeah,
talking about dating other women,
you you'll link it directly to this part.
and then before we talk about move on from Looney Tunes, we have to talk about Space Jam. I've seen both of them. I'm guessing you have too.
Hmm.
The new one was okay. Definitely not. I mean, and I get it. There's a nostalgia factor because we were kids when it first came out, but I think the first one just had so much more like, I don't know, just like Disney fun with it. Like, you
Yeah.
had Michael Jordan and Bill Murray and Wayne Knight was there, and the first introduction to Lola Bunny. Whereas the new one just seems to so much of a product of today. Especially like, oh, you start jamming in all the cameos. Like, oh, it's Pennywise from It. Really?
Let's be fair, the original was also a product of its day as well. Just it
Yeah,
speaks to more the culture. It like weirdly enough, Space Jam movies, both of them, are a mirror to the culture of the day. And we are
yeah,
oversaturated with connected universes and streaming and everything like at our fingertips that you can go from a movie of going from Rick and Morty to the Matrix to blah blah, etc.
yeah. But
So,
it's cool seeing all those characters together and giving them a common enemy because
yep.
it's not Bugs Bunny versus Elmer Fudd. It's Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd versus the Monstars.
Yeah, versus the WB universe.
Yeah,
See, it worked for like movies like Ready Player One, but it didn't work as well in this one to me.
yeah. All right. So Matt, you brought up that. I think another one you can't not bring up is just the opposite side of that. It's just the classic Disney cartoons, like the Mickey and Donald and Goofy and just their cartoons.
Yep. The one that I really like when you look back, sure they had like their shows, but they had a lot of different shorts. So they had different like
Hmm.
I had as a kid I had VHS that had like 3 or 4 Mickey shorts on it or whatever all
Yeah.
together. 5 to 10 minute little things. And the one that I loved, I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, but there's one that had Mickey, Donald, and Goofy as ghost hunters.
No, I haven't seen that one.
That one was I watched that one on repeat so much, but I was like 4 when I was watching it, and there's at the very end of that, they chase the ghosts out of this house and they scare them, and the ghosts run away from this haunted house. That's how it ends. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
And then as they're running out into the horizon, all of a sudden, like this little jack-o'-lantern, but it's a friendly one, like pops up on the screen and just goes boo. But then like it smiles. Scared the crap out of me as a 4-year old. Like you'll watch and you're like, this isn't even a jump scare. But I, as a 4-year old, was terrified of that. Yeah, I still braved it every single time because I wanted to see this this little short and watch it over and over. So I kept scarring myself intentionally for some reason.
That's funny. The only one I remember specifically, there's one where Goofy goes skiing.
Oh yeah. I do like I liked Goofy more than the other ones, but like
Yeah.
the stuff where it's like Goofy would be trying to do something and there'd be a narration in the background, like
Mhm.
Goofy does
Yeah.
sports or
Yeah.
etc.
Mhm.
Those are my favorite.
Those was my favorite too. And then I'm not sure when he started, but I mean, Bill Farmer has been doing Goofy for decades. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think he went back to the 40s, but I mean, he started early on, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been Goofy as long as I've been alive. And like Jim
Yeah.
Cummings right there with him of just being Pete and a lot of other voices for
Yeah.
decades.
If I had a decent Donald Duck impression, I would do it, but I can't do it.
Instead,
I don't
here's a
have
sound
one.
effect. Daddy. All right. Well, let's move on to another like big conglomerate. So, Looney Tune, like Warner Brothers and Disney, they were instrumental in like the start of these sort of things. But someone who actually, kind of in that same time period, I was going to talk about this other group, but I'm going to save them for a second. This other
Okay.
one was Tom and Jerry, and they actually got their
Yep.
start in a 1940 film called Puss Gets the Boot, where they were called Jasper and Jinx in it, not
Mhm.
before Tom and Jerry, but like they were the Tom and Jerry characters. They changed their name, they develop them. But it's like really funny is that they had this series of shorts when they started with Tom and Jerry. That they won a number of Oscars. I never knew because this is the research I did on this because this was the company I wasn't as familiar with. I didn't know that Tom and Jerry had won Oscars, and even the very first one had was nominated for an Oscar. But the company that started this is J Ward Productions, and so yeah, they started with Tom and Jerry, and then they get to and we can talk about Tom and Jerry for a little bit more, but they do eventually get to something that's even bigger called Rocky and Bullwinkle. So
Ooh, yeah. I totally forgot about Rocky and Bullwinkle, but we need to get to that too.
yeah. So we'll start with Tom and Jerry and then hit Rocky and Bullwinkle as well. And Tom and Jerry, I don't have much to say about it because I don't like Tom and Jerry as much. Just like how I didn't like Sylvester and Tweety Bird,
Yeah.
just the cat and mouse or cat and bird sort of thing
Yeah.
isn't my jam.
Well, the reason I don't like it, Tom and Jerry, as much, I know I don't mean to be haters. I get the appeal of it, and it's a classic cartoon. It's worthy of being in the conversation. But I always preferred Sylvester and Tweety. I know you don't like them. I always preferred those guys if I was going to watch that kind of cartoon.
Yeah, I think the benefit of Sylvester and Tweety is they at least gave Sylvester dialogue. With Tom
Yeah,
and Jerry, it's completely void of dialogue. It's just
yeah,
all visual representation, which is fine. And that maybe that's what people loved about it back then is that they just had they were so intrigued without having them have to say a single word.
yeah, for sure. And but yeah, I'm good with moving right into Rocky and Bullwinkle, which interestingly enough, my introduction to Rocky and Bullwinkle was from Full House
Yeah.
because one of Joey's go-to impressions is Bullwinkle. He puts his hands overhead. It was, I'm Bullwinkle. He does it better than I do. Dave Coulier, for as much as the Joey character is not as funny as they want us to think he is, Dave Coulier does some good impressions, and he does a pretty good Bullwinkle.
Yeah. So Rocky and Bullwinkle was one of those that this was one that had lost some steam by the time it got to me. I watched it every
Yeah,
now and then, but it definitely was not on my top. Like Looney Tunes still felt relevant, and some of these other cartoons we're going to talk about felt
yeah,
relevant still. But Rocky and Bullwinkle felt like it was just a Cold War relic,
yeah.
And
It's
there what
it's my dad's cartoon. Like he loved Rocky and Bullwinkle growing up.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of it is like the Russian bad guys of Boris and Natasha, and that
Yeah,
it is very much like Russia bad. And even though I think like I think isn't Rocky a Canadian squirrel?
I think so.
I don't think he's even American. I think he's Canadian. And speaking of which, like this show, what I also liked about this show was it had a lot of other, is almost again like sketch comedy with all these different cartoons. Same with Looney Tunes, where it's just this collection of shorts. And some of the shorts in it I felt were better than the Rocky Bullwinkle main line because neither of them were very interesting to me. I was a
Yeah.
lot more interested in, speaking of Canadians, Dudley Do Right or the Mr. Peabody and Sherman were
I was going
another
to
one
mention Peabody Sherman.
that was my
That was it.
favorite.
Was that a spinoff? Like, they got their own show, right?
Yep. No, they didn't get their own show at any point that I'm aware of. They had their own movie
Okay.
from about 10 years ago. I don't think they ever had their own show, but I could be mistaken.
Okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm thinking of the movie.
Yeah. But I did really
Yeah.
like Peabody and Sherman. They were a lot of fun. In fact, the in the Back to the Future movie, the very first one,
Mhm.
when Marty travels back to 1955, Doc talks about how like the ground that they were on at the mall was like Old Man Peabody owned that entire ground, and so the Old Man Peabody's son in the casting is named Sherman Peabody as a nod to Mr. Peabody and Sherman, since they also do time travel. That's their whole shtick.
Gotcha. Matt, I don't know if you know this. It's not called the Back to the Future movie. It's just called Back to the Future.
No, I'm old now. I'm at a certain age where I have to put the in front of things that don't deserve the. Like I was on the Facebook earlier.
I'm just giving a crap because Matt, we've talked about, is the biggest Back to the Future fan, and so for me to correct him on something like that, I can't pass it up.
The biggest the Back to the Future, the Back to the Future, the the sound effect. This is nice. I have no idea. I'm just doing this in blind faith that you're actually
Yeah,
gonna do the work and put a sound effect in there. Otherwise, it's just sound effect silence.
I'm also just screwing myself over by I'm gonna have to go back and edit a lot of this podcast.
This I almost had this as oh, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Nope, moose squirrel, we got it.
So I almost added this for trivia because another one of J Ward Productions. I don't want to talk too much about this apart from just noting something that I find funny is George of the Jungle cartoons. Um, I
I
only
don't think I've
saw
seen
the
those.
I only saw like the movie with Brendan Fraser, but I just find it funny that Brandon Fraser had done two Jay Ward Productions as movies. Like he was Dudley Do Right and Dudley Do Right, and he was George of the Jungle. So for a guy who doesn't have like this huge repertoire of movies or resume of movies, for him to have done two of the Jay Ward, I find that hilarious.
Yeah, well, that's funny. What
All
do
right.
you got next, Matt?
So this one is going to cover a lot of different cartoons, and these guys came about 10, 15
Yep,
years after the Warner Brothers got on their feet and
yep,
and that, of course, as you know, is Hanna Barbera.
yep. H&B Hanna Barbera.
And they were like, I love Looney Tunes, but I feel like Hanna Barbera was my jam. I
Yeah,
So for those who don't know, is like their big flagstone ones are at first as Flintstones and Jetsons, but Scooby Doo comes later, and that's a wildly successful. Yogi Bear is
yeah,
on there. There's a lot on part of, and it's the same thing with Looney Tunes, where it's like they would have these like shorts that they do all in one episode. So you would have these other characters apart from just Yogi Bear or just whatever.
yeah,
Jetsons, Jetsons, Flintstones, Scooby Doo. Those were more like your 30
yeah.
minute
Those are the
show.
big three. Yeah,
Yeah. So let's hit Flintstones first because,
yep.
Flintstones was the Honeymooners. But in fact, it was so much like the TV show The Honeymooners. Jackie Gleason considered suing them and is like, no, I don't want to be the guy that takes Fred Flintstone off TV. So he let it go, but he was close
Hmm.
to suing them because it was such a
Yeah.
ripoff of Honeymooners.
So growing up, I watched Flintstones through. If there's anyone younger than us, there's used to be these things called video stores where you go and they'd have these physical blocks. You'd have to insert in a machine up to your TV, and they would show you things. And there was these blocks called VHS tapes of cartoon compilations, and there was a bunch of Flintstone ones, and that's how I got introduced to Flintstones.
I got introduced because we were so rich we could afford something called the Cartoon Network. and they played Flintstones
I
all
did.
the time.
I had car- I had the Cartoon Network later. Not quite. I think you probably had it earlier than we did.
Yeah, man, I loved Cartoon Network. I would watch it. It was like between
Yeah.
Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, I'd go back and forth between those two
Yeah.
networks.
We will definitely have to do a whole different episode about the Cartoon Network cartoons, the original cartoons. If we
Yeah,
start talking about those, that we're going to derail it too much. So we'll just save that for another episode.
because they did their own original stuff, and then they did so much stuff that they're like, "What do we do with this? All these other original classic stuff that we had? Let's do another channel called Boomerang," and they threw all of these classic shows on
Yeah.
there. But
Yep.
yeah, Flintstones was great. It was like the whole catch of that song is the modern Stone Age family. It was making fun of like modern times of like the American dream for families, but in the cave stone era, in the
Yeah.
caveman era, and it worked. Somehow it worked super well.
Yeah. Because I mean, you can just suspend your disbelief enough with these cartoons. Like, sure, an elephant just stands by their house and it's their shower. Sure, and we all know that that's not how things worked, but no one cares because it's a cartoon and it's funny, and it just works.
Yeah,
The
and
Flintstones, yeah,
they had a
yeah,
caveman representation of modern day appliances. Yeah, right. But still, it's fun to suspend your disbelief. It's not fun, however, when they introduce the Great Gazoo and then the show just goes off the rails. Like, what were you guys thinking? A little green alien?
yeah. It's like we don't. It's not that the alien was more unbelievable because we're already like far gone from believability, but it's like you already have enough to work with. You have
Yeah.
familiar characters in a world. Show us more dinosaur appliances. Show us more rocks being used for things that you don't use rocks for. Like show more puns. You don't need. Oh, now it's aliens too. Like,
Yabba dabba doo!
Did Honeymooners get canceled and you ran out of storylines to do? Because I mean, you did the cliche ones of like the Fred has to be in two places at once with the water buffaloes and what an anniversary dinner or something like
yeah,
that. Like
Pebbles' birthday.
or that's what it was. Like you played the classics of sitcom storylines.
Yeah,
You
hmm
like stick to those. But
yeah. And then I know we're talking about animation, but the Flintstones movie, I I've seen Viva Rock Vegas, the second one, a couple times. It's been a while, but the original one with John Goodman and Rick Moranis, that is just great casting, great movie, and it's just great. It brings it into because by then Looney Tunes was already 30 years, or Flintstones was already 30 years old at that point, and to have a hit movie with A-list actors just shows like how much in the cultural zeitgeist it still was.
yeah, Rosie O'Donnell as Betty was a head scratcher, but everyone else was well
Yeah,
casted.
as you say, yeah, well casting for the most part.
Yeah. It's like, oh, your agent really worked hard to get you in here.
Well, I've heard that she got the part because she could like perfectly mimic the laugh, like Betty Rebel's laugh. Which
Yeah.
sure, but there's more to it than that. Like John Goodman, especially in the '90s, is Fred Flintstone.
Well,
Like,
100%.
why bother casting anybody else?
Yeah.
Just you know,
Like, so Rick Moranis, he's not like Barney when you look at him, but he was able to really disappear into that role enough that it
yeah.
was believable.
Well, because Barney, if anyone looks like Barney the cartoon, they need to see a doctor because they're basically just a tiny square of a cube.
Same with Popeye. If you look like
Yes.
Popeye, go see a doctor.
Yeah.
You might have something severely wrong with you.
I think you need something more than just spinach.
Yeah. Um, all right. So Flintstones was good. I personally preferred Jetsons though. Like I liked Flintstones. I really liked the idea of Jetsons. I know Jetsons wasn't quite as popular as Flintstones. It was still pretty popular, but it wasn't quite the same as Jetsons or as Flintstones was. But I
Hmm.
love future stuff. Like the future idea is so much fun to me. And I like, I don't like that like every single depiction of the future now is like, it's dystopia. Like, no, let's give me a happy utopian society. I want to
Hmm.
see an optimistic future, and that's what the Jetsons was. And I really enjoyed it. And it was again the same issues that you'd have of a modern family, but you throw it a couple hundred years in the future, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, have you heard the dark fan theory that the future is actually both a wasteland dystopia and the great Jetsons, because it's saying that the Flintstones is actually in the future with the Jetsons, but that's just showing what the people down on Earth who can't afford to get all the flying cars, what they're doing.
I I've heard versions of that. I don't care for it because
Me either,
like
but I had
it
to bring
doesn't
it up.
it doesn't make sense. Like let's be honest. The Jetstones is the Jetstones. What the Jetsons is just as impractical as the Flintstones. Why the heck are you
Yeah,
living 1,000 feet in the air? That doesn't make. I don't get it.
because we can.
Because you can, but
Because where
still,
they're going, they don't need roads.
it's the way to show off flying cars and make that practical and all that sort of stuff. But and there's no guardrails in the Jetsons. I'm sorry. Why am I like picking this apart on a show that I loved?
Also, didn't George Jetson kind of have like a Homer Simpson job where all he had to do was push a button?
Yeah. And Stanley Sprocket, played by Mel Blanc, or voiced by him.
Yeah,
One of the few roles where he busts out of the Warner Brothers universe
yeah.
to lend his voice.
And well, he wasn't he also Barney Rubble?
Was he?
I thought he was. And
You
Dino.
could you could be right.
Yeah.
I will. You are very smart, so if you feel like that's correct, it probably is.
I think it is. You know what? I'm not going to look it up. And so if I'm wrong, I'm just going to be wrong.
Sound effect.
I'm. It's seriously like I don't remember all what they were. I haven't listened to the CD in a long time, but it's a 3-pack of CD, and the second one is just 75 sound effects of random stuff, and some of them come from Flintstones. I know one of them is the bowling noise. Where listen, it's this one.
Oh, I thought you meant this one.
Joke's on you. I think there are two different bowling ones. I can put them both in.
Dang it, he got me.
Okay, we have to move on to what is my favorite, and if it's not your favorite, I might judge you a little bit. Scooby Doo.
Scooby Doo is for sure the best. I had a couple other ones I was gonna hit and like leave Scooby Doo for like the grand finale.
Well, I want to talk about it now.
But here we
So,
are. All right.
yeah.
Because the other ones are going to feel like afterthoughts compared to Scooby Doo. Because Scooby Doo, it has like the most lasting power. Sure, we've seen some Flintstone stuff in the last in the last couple decades, I guess, or Jetsons. But I mean, like, Scooby Doo is still getting new movies, is getting new TV shows. Even if people
Mhm.
hate the new TV shows, I haven't watched Development, but by all accounts, I've heard it's terrible. But
I haven't either, but I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a check out. I'll give it a try. Is what I want to say. But don't expect a Velma podcast from us.
no. I did. There are some really good shows right now that I think would be good. I think we should probably do a Last of Us podcast because I've seen the
I
first
keep
couple
hearing good
episodes.
things about it.
Yeah, it's really good so far. So if you are a Last of Us, here's our casting call. All right, reach out to us if you played the video game because I never played the video game, but I really am liking what I've seen of Last of Us so far, and I would love to have a guest host that has played the video game and we can bounce some ideas off of and talk about it once the show's done.
Yep, exactly. We're on Facebook. We're on email. We're on Twitter. We don't check Twitter. Don't tweet us.
We're on the Twitter.
Yeah.
And you know what else is another show that we should have an episode about that, again, we would love the guest for? That 90s show that
Yep.
just came out.
I've watched like 5 minutes of it. I haven't had time to yet, but I want to check it out.
Yeah, broad strokes of it is it really captures the feel of the first of that 70s show. But it like later in the seasons when it hits its stride, it's a little cheesy at the beginning, but it gets better by the end of this.
It's gonna be.
It's funny.
I'm just glad. I'm glad they finally showed that Bob came back. 'Cause, like when they were doing the casting, I'm like, why have they like revealed everybody but Bob? I get why Danny Masterson's not back, but there's no
Yes.
reason not to bring Bob back. So, and I'm because especially since it's about his granddaughter, you
Yeah.
know. So, yeah.
What about
I don't know.
Bob?
Yeah, but I mean, we can't gloss over Scooby Doo like that because I remember
for sure.
I watched Scooby Doo all the time. I remember one point there was like a Blair Witch style Scooby Doo marathon where they show like little clips of the characters in the woods and like little detail clips. Like they're talking about how, you know that Shaggy's real name is Norville, and he's actually a vegetarian, which I think
What?
doesn't. They were claiming that if you watch all the sandwiches that he eats, it's all like not meat, and I don't think that translates to every version of Scooby Doo.
No,
In fact, I know it doesn't. But in some versions of Scooby Doo, he's a vegetarian.
that's fair.
Maybe
I
maybe the original version. Who knows?
I do love Scooby Doo. I haven't watched, of course, I haven't watched every single version of it. I've seen it with Scrappy Doo. I've seen it without. I've seen a pup named Scooby Doo. I've seen like the recent
Mhm.
movies, the Scoob, which aren't that
Yeah,
great. That wasn't that great. I saw the live action, the first one.
yeah.
There's just so much Scooby Doo content. But I gotta
I like
say,
the live action movies.
the it was fine. I didn't see the sequel, but I saw the first one, and it's like it was fine. They did a
Sequel has
really good
Peter
job.
Boyle in it.
Oh, does it? But the
Yeah,
original has Rowan Atkinson, my friend.
yes. I'm not saying that they're both fantastic. That's what I'm saying.
I do want to rewatch the original because it's a James Gunn movie, and if you don't know who that is, he does the Guardians of the Galaxy films. He did the most recent Suicide Squad. He's a very unique personality as a filmmaker, and so
Okay.
his you can feel his unique personality in Scooby Doo. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, yeah. The second one has got not only Peter Boyle but also Seth Green too.
There you go. Did,
Yeah.
that sounds familiar. I thought the first one had Seth Green. Then now that I think about it, like he
No.
feels like he fits in that movie, so it does. It's
Yeah.
not a surprise that he's in the second.
Yeah. So I mean, in Scooby Doo, yes, the five of them are all important, but really Scooby and Shaggy are the stars of the show.
Yeah,
And I mean, Fred, Velma, and Daphne, depending on which version of it, are kind of like just background players. Some versions do them better than others.
yeah. Velma tends to be the most valuable of those three. Like
Yeah.
Scooby and Shaggy catch the bad guy through sheer happenstance. Velma had it already figured out, and
Mhm.
Fred also, like, he's the one who does like the deduction most of the time. He's the one who's like,
Mhm.
by the way, I knew it all or whatever, and I don't buy that he figured it out. I buy that I feel like Velma let him in on it or whatever, and then she will like
Yeah.
take over. Because like Fred and Velma will be like, this is the bad, but whatever, and then Daphne's just like, I was here the whole time.
Yeah. She's there to be the pretty one. Which you don't always get in the cartoons.
Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, I think some versions of Scooby Doo play with Fred being more inept than he lets on, whereas some of them are just pretty straight, like, oh yeah, he's the capable leader. So whether or not he is or is not, I think it just depends on which version of Scooby Doo you're watching.
absolutely.
It's one of the, and also Fred from Scooby Doo is one of the main normal speaking roles of Frank Welker, who normally does all the animal noises. But he also is in most versions Fred from Scooby Doo.
Nice. Um, yeah, and I think we talked about him when we did the celebrity voices.
Yeah, we did.
Um, the one that I really like that has a lot of nostalgia for me doesn't even. It only has of the main cast. It only has Scooby, Shaggy, and Scrappy, and that was Scooby Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf. Did you ever see that one?
No, I didn't see that one.
It's a weird storyline where I don't remember why, but I watched this video a lot. But for some reason, oh, that's right. All these monsters are having this annual monster race, and so you got like Dracula and Mummy and Frankenstein, etc. And then the werewolf decides he is done. He's retiring, and like he sends him a postcard from like Miami or something like that. And so then Dracula, who's the head of it, is like, "Well, what are we gonna do? We have to come up with a new werewolf." So they find like Shaggy has the powers to be the next werewolf for some reason that he's the one they
Okay.
choose. So they turn him into a werewolf and then tell him that they'll turn him back if he can win this race. And so Shaggy in this one also has a girlfriend, so she's another character that you have. So you got Shaggy, Scrappy, Scooby, and Shaggy's girlfriend all at this monster castle and trying to prepare for this race and then win this race. I loved it because especially the race dynamic reminded me of another Hanna Barbera show that I was going to talk about called Wacky Races. Which big character from that is Dick Dastardly, but I
Mhm.
loved Wacky Races because it was a lot of fun. It was like
Yeah.
watching Mario Kart, but a more entertaining version of it.
Yeah,
So it was a lot of I loved wacky races, and this like kind of captured that feel while also
yeah,
combining some great characters that I loved.
that's cool. And it sounds like it's interesting when they have like actual real monsters. Because one of my favorite Scooby Doo ones was Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. You ever see that one?
No, but I've heard of
I have it actually. I have it on DVD, which I'm still bitter that DVD is already becoming old tech.
it.
I like DVDs. That gummit.
They're too old tech behind because like we went from DVDs to HD DVD slash Blu-ray, whichever one, and then it was Blu-ray that won that battle. Remember that? That was like a battle for like a year and a half, and then Blu-ray was
Yeah.
like, "Yep, we kick butt." And so then we had Blu-rays, and then now, of course, we got you don't even own anything; you just have a streaming service.
Yep. And you know what? Scooby Doo has been around through through the VHS phase, through the cassette tape phase with soundtracks, through CDs, through DVDs, HD, Blu-ray, streaming. Like you can change whatever you want. You're not going to get rid of Scooby Doo, and who would want to?
Scooby Doo premiered the same year as Woodstock. It premiered the same year as Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. It was in 1969, the same year as Sesame Street. So it has
Yep.
been around for a while.
Yeah. My parents were 13 when Scooby Doo came on the air.
Good gravy. 54 years old, my friends. And
Yep.
it's held up. It's good. Like the fact that they're still able to create content, sure, like they feel like they have to adapt it and
Yep.
go meta for different things. Yeah, I get it. But
Yep.
still, there's good stories to be had with them. I like I said, I liked the pup named Scooby Doo in the 90s.
Yep.
That was a cartoon I watched a lot and I enjoyed it a lot.
I just realized I just revealed my mother's age on TV on our podcast, but you know what? She's never gonna know.
All right. So I won't tell your mom if you don't tell my wife. We've got our pact here.
That's good. By the way, Matt, actually, you know what? Not just Matt, all of our listeners too. A couple years ago, we got my mom to agree that if she lives to be at 100, because she hates being a center of attention, she'll let us throw the biggest birthday bash for her if she turns 100, and you're all invited. I mean,
We're just gonna throw out flyers everywhere we go.
I mean, we've still got like 30 some year, not there. We've got a ways to go. You guys do the math. We got a couple of decades to go, but
He's giving you the
you're
pieces
invited.
to figure out the age. You do it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Scooby Doo is great. And then this again, I didn't want to talk too much about, but like Hanna Barbera, one of the big characters from Hanna Barbera is Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear had
Yep.
his own show. The Yogi Bear show did have a number of other characters on it. One that I remember that no one else seems to remember is a character named Snagglepuss. Do you remember Snagglepuss?
Snagglepuss. Yeah. He's the one that talked like this. I'm Snagglepuss. Is that
Exit
him?
stage left,
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
Tis I, Snagglepuss.
Yes, I love Snagglepuss. He was just so dramatic.
Yeah. He was, I mean, let's face it, they weren't gonna say this in the 60s, but he was a drag queen, basically.
He was fabulous,
Yeah.
flamboyant, over the top.
Mm.
So
I don't really know much about it, but I know Huckleberry Hound was in that vein too, along with Hong Kong Phooey and Underdog.
yeah, yeah. Huckleberry Hound had his own show, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. I thought he was part of Yogi Bear, but yeah, Huckleberry Hound had his own show that he had some people on there. And then there's characters that appeared on these, like Jabberjaw or
Yeah.
who else from Hanna-Barbera? Like Hanna-Barbera, when you look at the list of of shows they have or the list of
Mhm.
characters they have, it is massive.
Yeah. And I don't know. Okay. The only thing I know about Popeye the Sailor Man is from watching Full House, because that was like Joey's big cartoon he was obsessed with, and he did. Again, Dave Coulier does a great Popeye impression, but from what I can tell, Popeye the show itself probably isn't that funny. It's okay. Maybe I'm blaspheming to somebody who's like, "How dare you?" But
It's okay. I watched it a little bit and it wasn't like the one that I looked forward to. I even saw the movie with Robin Williams. That was a
I
strange
never saw that one.
movie. Yeah, Robin Williams
I
is Popeye.
talking about these live action ones, Scooby Doo and Flintstones and a Popeye. There's, to my knowledge, there's never really been a big live action Jetsons.
Yeah, I don't think there has been. There was
I wonder.
Flintstones meets the Jetsons, but that was animated.
Yeah,
But yeah, Jetsons didn't
I
have
mean,
too many specials even.
no, it was just pretty straightforward. I think I heard something like based on like the clues of when the Jetsons was going to be, like George Jetson, I think is going to be born sometime soon if he hasn't already been.
Yeah, I think he has already been born, but it was recent.
Okay, so if baby George Jetson's out there somewhere.
Yeah. No one names their babies George anymore. His name would be like PETA. It's something from a young adult novel.
Hipsters will still name their baby George.
But like, gosh, it'll be really funny to see. Like Despicable Me, where all the girls' names are like these old girls' names, like Agnes
Mhm.
and Ethel.
Yeah, funniest. I mean, and it's weird to go back generations. People just would name their kids weird things. This is a total non sequitur, but it's such a weird tidbit that I can't not share it whenever I can. So my grandpa had a brother named Pat. It's my dad's uncle Pat, whose real name is Sheldon, because my great grandparents could not agree on what to name him, and I guess basically the husband said, "Name him whatever you want. I'm going to call him Pat." And so mother put Sheldon. His mother put Sheldon on the birth certificate, and his dad called him Pat, and that's how my dad has an uncle Pat Sheldon.
My son's name is Matthew Jack Rodenberg, and we call him Jack, not Matthew.
Yeah, I always forget that his name is Matthew.
Yeah, every now and then he'll want to be like referred to as Matthew. We were playing a game, and one of the jokes of the game is, "Hey, is Matt short for mattress?" And so he thought that was the funniest thing in the world, and so now he wanted to be called Matthew, and sometimes he wants to be called Mattress.
You know what I think you guys should do? Because you and him are both Matthew. You go by Matt, give him the back half, call him Thu, and it'd be Matt and Thu.
I had some friends at work when I was working at the bank that they called me Hugh.
Because like no one ever does the back half of that. It's like my dad, his name is Donald. No one ever calls him Donald. It's Don.
Can I call you Al? Maybe just Din, or how about Laddie?
That was from the Latin, right?
That was
Yes.
well
Yeah.
done. Sound effects.
So Matt, you were having so much fun with this thing that I came up with the sound effects.
Well, because it means no work for extra work for me. It's all extra work for you.
I know. And just this is an this episode exclusive because it's relevant to classic cartoons. I'm not going to
I
be
don't
doing this
know.
kind of edit. I'm not going to be doing this kind of editing every time. You know what, Matt? If you want to add sound effects to any episodes, I will email you all the sound effects files, and you can do it. Have at it. I will do it for
Yay!
this one. I'll do it for this one.
I'm just all my sound effects are me just saying "daddy." That'll be a quick way to lose all of our listeners.
I was just going to say that. If any of you are still around, oh, I also forgot to mention with the Flintstones. Another thing I love with the Flintstones is I won $1,100 at the casino when I was on a Flintstone slot machine. So I have fond memories of that one.
And there are millions of people out there who won healthy immune systems from Flintstones multivitamins. So
Yes.
that tastes
So
like chalk.
from vitamins to gambling, it's everywhere. By
To
the way,
breakfast cereals.
We don't endorse gambling. Gamble when it's legal. Make smart choices. All that. Don't gamble intoxicated.
And I don't support Fruity Pebbles. Cocoa Pebbles are nothing for me.
I like Fruity Pebbles.
I do too, actually. Well, I don't know if I like them anymore. Like Fruity Pebbles, if you put them in there and then you let the milk sit for longer than 2 seconds, you have mush.
I don't like milk in my cereal. I like dry cereal.
That is a fair take, but I don't always agree with it. I'm also not a huge cereal guy. I'm not like I'm going to eat
Neither am
cereal
I.
a ton. Ooh, I'm sorry, guys. That's a fighting words for some of you out there. So tell us why
If
we're wrong.
I haven't had cereal in probably 2 years.
Okay, which celebrity off the top of your head do you think is like the biggest cereal guy? If there's one you're like, this guy for sure is a cereal guy, who would it be?
Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld. I think Jason Segel.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, he gives out definite.
Or is it Siegel?
Um,
I guess I don't know
it's
exactly.
it's Jason Segel, but Steven Seagal.
Yeah. Yep. I did know Steven Seagal for sure. I knew that that's how you pronounce that. Siegel. Sorry. Siegel just, it's a bird. That's what your last name is. It's a bird, Jason. Get with it.
Well, so you don't hear Larry Bird complaining about that.
That's true. But then again, I don't spend a lot of time listening to Larry Bird, so maybe
Do
that's
you
on
spend
me.
Do you spend a lot of time listening to Jason Segel?
I do all the time.
All right.
Every day.
So Matt, did we miss anything? I think we hit all the big ones that I planned.
I think we got it. Yeah, got the biggies.
Yep.
But I've got some good trivia. First of all, we had last week's trivia. So last week we had Andrew Elmquist back when we talked about stand-up comedians. And so one of the not one of the trivia. He didn't have multiple trivia questions. He just had the one. The trivia question that he had was he was asking which stand-up comedian got paid the biggest paycheck for one stand-up special. And that was Eddie Murphy. He had the biggest paycheck for a comedy special in history. So Eddie Murphy, most paid stand-up comedian.
I didn't know that.
I would have guessed that, I think, but I didn't know it off the top of my head.
I think I might have guessed Jerry Seinfeld. Not that I think he's so great, but because Seinfeld, the show, was such a juggernaut in the '90s.
Yeah, that's a good guess. I think Robin Williams would be up there because like he was also doing comedy at the same time as doing other movies, so he's a big deal. I guess so is Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
All right, so this week we talked about a lot of different shows, but let's go back to one of my favorite stories. Is I love talking about Walt Disney and Walt Disney Company in their early years.
Okay.
And so Walt Disney was dealing with someone at Universal when he was drawing Oswald the Rabbit, and one of the producers there they didn't get along. They bashed heads, and actually a Disney movie named a villain after this producer at Universal. So what was the name of that producer, or what was the villain from which movie in Disney?
The Sheriff of Nottingham.
That's his name. They called him Sharif at Universal.
So I don't know, but I'm guessing it's not the Sheriff of Nottingham.
It's not the Sheriff of Nottingham. No. Nor is it Ursula. There's your other hint.
Well, that one could have been because Ursula is an actual human name that people could name their kids.
Okay, fine. It wasn't Scar.
I was gonna say Scar.
No.
Well, there's ScarJo.
That's not the same. That's not this. Okay, so we're gonna leave you guys now. Next week we are gonna talk about a show we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about this show, but never had an episode about it. So we're gonna have a Boy Meets World episode next week, talking about the different relationships on Boy Meets World and ranking them and seeing what's the best relationship on Boy Meets World. So that'll be a good episode.
Yep. There are 3 acceptable answers that I will accept as number 1. We'll talk about this next week. If number 1 is not one of those 3, I will be very upset.
Yep, Morgan and Sean.
Yep, that was the one.
Clearly.
So it was Harley Kiner and Minkus, who never shared any screen time together.
Exactly.
Until Girl Meets World when they did, actually.
Or you could do yeah. So there you go. We're talking about that next week. Make sure you're here for it. There won't be as many sound effects unless I do them with my mouth like Michael Winslow from Police Squad or Police Academy. But until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.
Sound effect. See, I can do it too.